think criminals might hit schools on purpose because they're easy sitting targets, but if they knew that teachers were prepared, they would be less likely to go in because it's not just an easy in-out job.
All right, that one teacher there from Utah saying, yes, more guns would be the answer. As kids, as many of you parents know, as we know here at the table, kids are on break right now across this country, and teachers like the one you heard in Utah and others in Arizona, they are getting, as we speak, schooled in the use of handguns to defend their students. The idea, if arming teachers among other school staff, and trust me, I'm talking about everybody from the janitor to the lunch lady here, if it seemed a crazy idea when the NRA suggested in the wake of the Newtown school massacre, think again. In different parts of this country, some people getting behind this idea. A new Gallup poll says that 64% of Americans think arming at least one school official would be at least somewhat effective against future attacks. So should teachers be allowed to carry guns into the classroom? Well, this debate, like most issues surrounding guns, has already flooded our message boards. But before we get to some of those comments and your phone calls, let me bring in Andrew once again with more on what's going on here, because I really didn't think this thing had legs, but obviously I misjudged it.
Well, Rich, it does have legs, particularly in more rural areas. Let's start in the deep red state of Utah. They've taken a big step in allowing teachers and other staff members, not counting existing security guards, to carry guns in schools. Over this holiday break, the state is offering gun training to teachers, and the teachers are turning out in droves.
There's just one thing on the lesson plan for these Utah teachers: how to pack heat on the job.
To be able to use them appropriately is really quite high priority for me.
While this gun may be fake, many fear the threats facing school classrooms are very real. And so 200 teachers met over the holiday break to become students themselves, learning how to protect their classrooms from an armed intruder.
We'll never know how many lives could have been saved at Sandy Hook Elementary if someone had had a firearm.
Since that shooting at Sandy Hook, more and more states are looking to add their names to the few that already allow guns in some form in public schools. Applications at one Ohio shooting class are up 20%, and it's everyone from teachers to bus drivers to janitors wanting to learn how to arm themselves on campus.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
The NRA's blanket call to arm our schools is really nothing more than a distraction.
As the debate rages on, so do the classes on how to arm teachers in Utah.
We just want to make sure that people have the tools at their disposal to mitigate risk and save lives at the end of the day.
This training was so popular, there's already one planned for the next school break.
Of course, even in gun-friendly Utah, the idea of more guns in schools is causing some debate. One teacher told a local paper that he was all for it because, quote, "We're sitting ducks. You don't have a chance in heck. You're dead. No ifs, ands, or buts." Meanwhile, a member of Utah State Board of Education said simply, quote, "It's a terrible idea. It's a horrible, terrible, no good, rotten idea." And finally, Rich, some anecdotal concerns. Everybody had the teacher that they kind of hated or that kind of hated them. I know I had a few. Imagine them with a gun. I'm not sure I want to.
Okay, well, we're going to bring in not only the table now, but also you at home. We asked last night a gun question as well as it relates to what the Journal News did. For those in our region familiar with the question, we'll show some of your comments later, printing all the names of gun owners in the region. But this one is more of a here and now. The idea now, certainly after Newtown, where no place is safe, even in an idyllic town, but is the answer that you want to let not only teachers, but adults in schools pack heat? Let's bring our panel in. And Dom, I'm going to start with you. You like the idea of this?
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And here's why. Here's why. What happens? Well, okay, the teacher locks up the gun, I assume. I would hope it's not. I would hope it's not on her.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose?
I would hope, right? It does defeat the purpose. I would hope it's not on his or her waist while they're teaching John and Johnny.
From one of the proposals I read that if they got the proper permit, they would have a sidearm on their person in the classroom.
Well, wouldn't that just make the NRA happy? So from the first grade on, we're going to teach little John and Johnny that you too should have a gun on your side. And let me make this one point. I've been to the NYPD's firing range several times, and people always say to me as a journalist, how come police officers, they don't shoot for your arm to disarm you or your leg? Here's why, and you made this good point in the green room. Police are taught to shoot for the largest mass of body, center mass, because oftentimes they miss. Look at what happened at the shooting at Empire State Building. Trained police officers, several people were shot. So what happens when this teacher that's never fired a gun, the adrenaline's pumping, and now they're going to stop the class lesson and pull out a gun? It's a recipe for a disaster.
If I could, we have, if we remember in the Virginia Tech shooting, if you got that, Chris, that was and still is the worst mass shooting on record in the U.S. And one of the victims of that shooting that survived, he with 20/20 was trained to use a gun, and then they put him in a simulation. But what happened was, if we have that video, guys, he ended up shooting in this simulation more innocent victims and bystanders, or even shooting himself by accident, than he did somebody else. And they put through, because he said, I wanted to know, and they did this test, and this is the picture of the shooter there. But that was in the aftermath of Virginia Tech. But okay, Eric, let me ask you. The argument would be, okay, instead of little kids being helpless, if the teacher's strapping a gun on his or her waistband, at least the kids would have had a fighting chance.
I mean, look, there's obviously some schools that have advanced security based on where they are. Maybe it's a dangerous neighborhood or whatever. But if we start having every teacher, administrator, janitor, whatever, holding weapons, I mean, already 600 people a year die outright from accidents. It's just, and thousands more are wounded. So what we're doing is we're
so make it tougher for you. What if you have one trained police officer like the NRA wants? Or trained adult, whatever the heck they want, in every school.
Even if there is one trained adult with a weapon in every school, I'm not sure that one trained adult is going to be able to stop these types of kills.
Why not arm the students?
The police officer is not going to be. He's not going to be on an arm. He's not going to be on a military footing.
You might very well be right. But when we start getting kind of silly, we say, why not arm the students? Right? We owe it to those 20 dead babies to be serious and very, very be intellectually honest in our conversations. Nobody is talking about, yes, might run into legal issues. Nobody is actually talking about arming the children. And I am not thrilled with the notion of arming an entire
staff. You may not, no one's talking about kids, okay? But
what they did, and I'm saying, and that takes the conversation in a silly path.
Let's be clear. What they are talking about is not just having a guard, but arming teachers. I don't like that. Timeout. They're also talking, I know you're not,
I'm with you.
But they're also talking about arming the janitor, the lunch lady, the gym teacher.
The thing is, though, is that I am not, I don't like any of those ideas. I don't mind the notion, and I think it makes sense to have one armed guard, a retired cop, and not even necessarily, not that Terminator there.
Real quick, because I want to get to the calls. Andrew?
Intellectually honest answer is, look at the stats from somebody's home. A gun is so much more likely to be used against the person it's meant to defend or a family member. What makes you think that same scenario doesn't play out at a school?
It's a retired cop. There are already armed guards.
Retired for a reason.
The Los Angeles Unified School District has an entire police force.
So what's the acceptable loss ratio at which guards shoot students and kill them in error?
We're going to keep this debate going, everybody. When we come back, we bring you into it. I go straight to the phone lines here. Obviously, we don't have consensus at the table, and I don't expect it at home. I want to hear from everybody out there. If you're a parent and your kid's going to school, if you're a teacher, and you would be theoretically on the front lines of this debate, where do you stand? You see the toll-free number on the screen. We'll get to your phone calls and also your online comments after this.